Now we're moving on to the more practical side of these calculations, where possibly you use it more in everyday life, right? Because you don't really find percentages. You don't, in most things, you don't say, hey, what percentage is brown in this room? What percentage is green in this room? You don't really do that. But we use percentages a lot in everyday life. For example, if you want to go to a restaurant, give somebody a tip, right? And you usually go, hey, this server did a good job. I want to give them a 20% tip. Or they didn't do such a good job. I want to give them a 10% tip. But how much money is that? We're talking about percentages, but what is the actual dollar amount? So we talk about percentages, but we need to convert into what quantity is it actually, right? Percentages are nice because they're always out of 100, but if your bill's not out of 100, that's not such an easy conversion to do mentally in our head, right? And in other places it shows up a lot is on sales. You go to the store, you're sitting in Foot Locker, hey, these pair of shoes are 15% off. Well, how much money is it actually off, right? How much is 15%? How many dollars is that? Is it really a good deal or not, right? So you use it in sales a lot too, right? 15% off. All right, so now the word of in math is a very specific word. It has arithmetic operations here. All right. So the word of, I think we talked about this before, right? There's 4 operations, right? There's adding, there's subtracting, there's multiplying, dividing. What does the word of translate into of those 4? Somebody said it. I heard it over here. It is times. So the word of, whenever you see in a word problem, means times. So you take your percentage of what are we trying to figure out and just multiply. So you find a percentage of a number. So say if you want to find 12%, oops. Oh, no, where did it go? Where did it go? Uh-oh. There we go. So if you're trying to find 12% of 50, we're going to multiply 50 by 12%. Now here's the thing. We never use percentages in a calculation. Percentages are nice when you're talking about out of 100, but if you want to use it in a calculation, percentages always need to be turned into a decimal first. Right? So this part needs to be turned into a decimal. What's 12% as a decimal? 0.12. 0.12. Remember, we just move the decimal 2 places to the left. Or we divide by 100. So that's 0.12. So if you want to find out what 12% of 50 is, like basically tax, Lucas, why don't you come on over? What? Come sit up here. Okay. Let's see. All right? Behind Armand. All right? Right. So, calculators are going to become important. So we need to do this. Chances are you can't do it in your head. So you just calculate it up. So 0.12 times 50 is 6. Right? So if they said, hey, you're giving 12% tip on $50, that means you're giving a 6% tip. Yes?
So if
$6.
it's like out of 50, then wouldn't you just divide the number by 2 since all percentages are out of 100?
They're all, so that you can do because 50 is a nice number to work with in relation to 100, right? But if I gave you, say, 37,
yeah,
that's a little bit harder to do, right? So yeah, you can use that technique if the numbers works nicely with 100, right? But so this is 6, right? Let's do some more easier practice. Let's go do this one. All right, you want to do 160% of $53.27. How much money would that be?
A lot.
All right? No. So this part stays the same, 53.27. The of changes into a times. How do we write 160 as a decimal? Rashawn? Sorry? 1.60. Right? So, do that calculation. What's 1.60 times 53.27? What do you get? 85. Oh, let me get calculator up here. 1.6 times 53.27. All right. So I think that was Rowan who was talking, right? And he said 85.232, and his number was right. But we should round that number. Since we're talking about money here, how many decimal places should we have our answer to? 2, right? Because we have dollars and cents. And cents are measured in 2. So we're going to take it right to the second decimal place is a 3. And we look at the number afterwards, it's a 2. Right? So that tells us if it's 5 or higher, we round up to the next cent. If it's lower than 5, it stays the same. So our answer is just going to be $85.23. All right? $85.23. Okay. So the next one gets a little trickier. This is like the trickiest situation here, is when we have a fraction inside of a percentage. Yes.
Convert it to a decimal, so 0.75.
Okay. So
75%.
so this isn't 75%, right? Remember when we have a fraction inside of a percentage, it means it is that zoomed in square.
Oh.
Right? A fraction for a percentage means it's a zoomed in square. It means it's actually going to be less than 1%. Right? So if you took this and you go 3 divided by 4, scrolling back, oh, computer's acting slow today. Right? That's 0.75. You go in your calculator, 3 divided, but that's 0.75% of 135. So if you ever see a fraction inside of a percentage, turn that whole number into a decimal and include that percentage. Write it as a decimal number. Now we convert that percentage into a decimal. So what do we got to do then?
Move it up to the spot, or move the decimal point up
To the left or to the right?
to
To the left. So we move the decimal 2 spots to the left. Right, so we're going to move this 1, 2 and put it there. So that's going to be decimal 0075. All right, so that's the tricky part. And the of changes into a times, and we have the 135. See that? So whenever we see fractions instead of percentage, that adds an extra layer of difficulty. So now we calculate that. We grab our calculator and we go, I'm going to move this over, and that's 0.0075 times 135 equals this, right? So now with this, if I don't, in grade 8, I'm not going to worry too much about rounding yet. We'll talk about that later on, right? You can ask me. Most times I'll just say two decimal places. So 1.01, all right, is our answer. I should have a little equal signs here. Okay. All right. So, looking at this here, I see a fraction inside of a percentage. So before I turn it into a decimal, as a decimal number, we're going to turn it into a decimal percentage. So we need to get rid of this 5/8, right? So use your calculator. If you don't have your calculator, how well do you think you're going to do in the next day's quiz, the next day's unit test? You need to get comfortable with your calculator. right? Ask your parents to get you one this weekend if you don't have one. So we turn that 5/8 into decimal. So just go 5 divided by 8 is 0.625. So what would this number be?
55.63.
Yeah, it's 55.63. Right? Change that to 55.63%. I'll keep the percent there of 500. I'm going to write it out. Right? Now, that percentage gets turned to a decimal. What number is it as a decimal?
0.5563.
Yeah, we divide by 100, or we move the decimal place 2 places to the left. So we can move it 2 places to the left, or divide by 100, so 0.5563. The of gets changed to a multiplication sign, and the 500 stays. Right? I'll turn percentage into a decimal. All right. So we do that calculation. I didn't do this because I know many of you guys don't have it. 0.5563 times 500. All right. 278.15. All right. Okay. All right. So let's see. I'll save these questions for next day to warm you guys up with. Let's go. And let's start off with the easier one. Let's start off with example 3. We're going to bounce around this page. All right. So a lot of word problems coming our way here. So we have Adele, who invested $40.12 into a saving plan at the beginning of the year. By the end of the year, it is worth 120% of its original value. And the question is, how much is it worth in terms of dollars? Now, in your mind, did her investment work out? Did it grow bigger or smaller? Bigger. It went more. It went more than 100%, so it grew. If it was like, hey, she got 80%, she lost value. So you should keep these little numbers back in your mind, so when you look at your final answer, if it turned out smaller, you're like, oh, I must have made a calculation here somewhere. Right? So we have 100, we need to figure out what is 120% of $40.12. Okay, let's convert this. Right? We don't do calculations with percentages. You do that as a decimal. You convert it. Borland, you're twirling around in your seat. What is this as a decimal? See? How are you supposed to know when you're twirling around? All right?
1.8.
Yeah, 1.2. We remove the decimals here, 2 places to the left. Write it down. Pay attention, you know. Small tasks, I'm asking you, 1.2, right, times 40.12. Okay. So we go 1.2, grab your calculator, times 40.12, and we get $48 and how many cents?
15.
Not 15. 14. Look at that extra number after the 4. 5 or higher, we round up. So it's lower than 5, so it stays the same for 48.14. Right? 14. Okay. So word problems, we give a little word statements. Right? You say the final investment is worth $48.14. Right? Now, these kind of questions could be slightly reworded as well. It could say, hey, how much money did she make in the year? So if I ask you that question, with the exact same information, what would you do?
You subtract, you subtract 48.14 from 40.4.
Yeah. So this is how much money she has at the end. This is how much money she started. Well, how much did she make? Well, the difference between $40.12 and $48.14. So if I asked you that question, right, you go, okay, this is her investment now, $48.14, and we go minus $40.12, so where we started, she made $8.02. So these questions can be added on like that. Right? And the same thing, I could do a question about investment loss, where she lost money, and then it could be like, okay, how much is your investment worth now? Or how much money did she lose over the course of the year? If you talk to your parents, most families have lost money over the last year or 2 years because the way the stock market and everything is going, right? It doesn't always go up, right? All right, so let's go. Okay, let's do this last one. We'll call it quits after this one. Okay, a survey showed 1/4% of 800 students use inline skates to get to school. How many of the 800 students use inline skates, rollerblades, to get to school? Right? So I'm going to write this out. 1/4% of 800. What do we do first?
Convert it to a decimal or a percentage, right?
Yeah, a decimal percent. So you go 1 divided by 4, you get 0.25. And the percent stays there. We don't work with fractions when we're dealing with percentages. So I got this. So 1/4% of 800. So now what do we do?
Convert it
Put
to
the decimal
decimal.
2 more.
Yep, do the decimal, move it over 2 more spots. 1, 2, so that's 0.0025 of 800. So the of changes to a times symbol of 800. Now we calculate, right? What does it equal?
200.
That doesn't look right. 200 would be a quarter. So you want 0.0025 times 800.
2.
Two kids. So, right? So we say that in a statement. 2 students use inline skates to get to school. Okay? We'll stop there. We use the other ones as a warm-up before we do